Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stock Picking with me, the trade engineer, as well as Financial Missy.
Hello,
Yes,
hello.
hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Yep. So today, we are actually going to talk about Micron, right? Ticker symbol MU, right? So this was actually requested by one of you last week. And so today we shall be delving into more detail on whether this US stock is right for entry. Right. So without further ado, I'll kick things off, right, by sharing my portion. And with that, let me share my screen. All right. Yep. So hi everyone, once again, right? So we are talking about Micron today, right? Is it time to enter Micron now? Right. So if you have been following the news from Micron, right, it has actually just reported earnings, right, and actually earnings, was actually better than expected, right. So with such a good news, right, of reported earnings, right, I think all of you may be wondering whether it is, a good time to enter Micron now. So today, both of us, Financial Missy and I, will be, talking on this in greater detail. Yep, but before we proceed, right, do give us a like, right, if you're here with us live, right, so that we know that you are here. And before I delve into Micron in further detail, as always, I shall do a brief recap, right, of our last stock, right. So that if you've been following our weekly videos, you should have known that we had covered this stock called Block, otherwise known as Square previously, last week, right, and its ticker symbol was SQ. Right, so if you haven't watched the video already, you can check out last week's video for more details. Right, so let me quickly just go through a quick recap of what we went through last week. Right, so I actually showed this chart on Block, right, ticker symbol SQ, right, last week. So this is a daily chart, right, that was shown, right, and in this daily chart, right, for Block, I actually drawn a few lines as well as some indicators, right. So actually, we have seen that the downtrend line, right, it actually crossed this downtrend line, right. We're trading above this downtrend line, right, and it was supported by this uptrend line. Additionally, we also saw that this horizontal line over here, right, about $131, right, to $133, right, it was testing this support, right. It actually went slightly below, right, and we are not sure whether it will actually break down further or will it actually rebound. Right, and we also saw that the MACD, right, on the daily MACD is actually on the positive side. So that's good on the bullish side of things. Right, and this was what I went through last week, right? So there was a bull and bear argument for Block, right? So the bull argument was that, it has crossed that downtrend line, right? And the price was actually still trading above that downtrend line. The daily MACD was also still positive, right? But on the bear side of things, right, we did see that horizontal support, right, at 131 to 133, right, being slightly broken, right? And if we look at the shorter time scale, on the hourly time scale, the MACD is actually negative. So what did I suggest last week? Right. So last week, what I suggested was to actually adopt a wait and see approach, right? To actually see whether this support, this first support of 131 to $133 is actually, will it be convincingly broken, or will it actually rebound back up? Right. So if the support is actually supported well, right, we can consider a long entry. But if not, right, we should wait. If it breaks down, we should actually wait for the next support. So how did it pan out, right, since then? So this is the updated daily chart for Block SQ, right, with the updated prices from last week trading. Right, so you can see we still have the same downtrend line, the same uptrend line, as well as the same indicators over here. And the first thing we saw, right, is that this horizontal support, right? So this horizontal support of 131 to 133, right? It broke, it broke slightly, this line over here, right? this first line over here. It broke slightly, right? But it actually rebounded, right? On 28th of March, that is on the Monday, the first trading day last week, right? So there was actually a green candle, right? It opened a slight gap up and actually reclaimed this support level, right? So this is that particular day, right? That's highlighted, right? And that downtrend line, it continued to trend, trade above this downtrend line, right? That's also a good sign as well. The daily MACD, right, during this whole period of time, it remained positive, right? Although, the gap, you can see the gap is actually narrowing recently. And, on the hourly side, right, hourly time scale, so this is on the hourly time scale, we see that the hourly MACD, right, has also crossed over into the positive region, right? So if we look at that particular day, this is 28th of March, Monday, right? So we open a slight gap up, and at the same time, right, we also saw that the MACD on the hourly time scale also started to cross over into the positive region. Right. So how did it all turn out, right? So actually, this was a good trade win, right? So if we look at how it panned out, right? If you actually entered right on 28th of March, right, on this slight gap up, right, and you actually saw that it reclaimed that support level, right? So you can actually enter right at the support of $132, and it actually went up, the very next day, right, all the way to 146 to 147. That's actually the next resistance level as I drawn over here, right? So if we took profit there, right, we could actually have gained impressive, 11% just in one day, right? And note that you see after it hit that first resistance level, it actually retraced back down, and now it actually hitting that support again. Right, so that's a quick recap, right, of a block or SQ, right? And if you're still with us and you're loving what we are sharing so far, don't forget to click that like or love button, right? Right, and now on to today's stock pick. Right, so today's stock pick is none other than Micron, right? Ticker symbol MU. Right, so before I delve into the detail, right, let's look at the overall price chart of Micron, right? So this is just the holistic view for Micron, right, on a daily time scale, right, since 2020 all the way till now, right? So you can see that the price actually went up quite a fair bit, right? And recently it has actually retraced a fair bit as well, right? There's some volatility in Micron's price. And we zoom in, right, to a recent time scale, right? The recent events that happened for Micron, right? You can see, right, especially in the last few days, right, there was a volume spike, right, as well as some price spike as well, right? So these 2 days, right, was actually the 29th to 30th of March, right? So what actually happened on these 2 days, right? Why was there a volume spike, and why did the price have such a huge action? Let's look at some news, right, that was released at that time. Right, so if we look back at the news, this is taken from Fool.com, right, on the 30th of March, right? So corresponding to that day where we saw the hype. So actually it tried to explain why Micron actually popped on that day, right? So let's go through some of the details, right? So actually, it actually described here that it actually jumped higher, right? And one of the reasons, right, the main reason here actually because it beat earnings, right? So it actually released its earnings, right, its latest earnings on that very day, right, on 30th of March, right? And as a result, right, it actually went up. Yep. So that actually implies that the results were actually good, right? So in fact, right, expectation was, it's supposed to earn about $1.97 per share, right? And a sales of 7.5 billion. Yep. But actual earnings, right, it's actually higher than 1.97. It's actually 2.18, right? And the sales was also higher at 7.8 billion. It's actually better than the analyst expectation, right? And if you look at further details on this, right? So actually, it actually saw a growth in its quarterly revenue, 25% year over year, right? And its gross profit margin, actually zoomed more than 20 percentage points, right? So actually, it also earned a higher gross profit margin, right? And if you look at the operating profits, right, it also has increased tremendously, right? In fact, it has quadrupled to 2.5 billion and net income at 2.3 billion, right? And on a per share basis, Micron had earned $2, right? Nearly 4 times what it has earned, 1 year ago in the same quarter. So all this is very good news, right? All this shows that the earnings are fantastic. So what, right? So according to this article, right, basically, right, it is advising. It has some forward prediction as well, right? So actually, Micron itself, right, it advised investors look for revenue of 8.7 billion, right? So this is expecting a revenue, right, a forward revenue of 8.7 billion, right? And this is actually higher than what Wall Street is predicting for Micron, right? In fact, it's only predicting at 8.1 billion, right? So even in the forward-looking prospect for Micron, right? It appears that Micron is going to surpass expectations in the very near future as well, right? So long story short, like it is a beat and raise quarter, as mentioned by this article, right? And so if you're investor into Micron, you might be very happy with this set of results. Right, another article, right, also taken from Fool.com, right? They also mentioned some catalysts, right? Some potential catalysts that might come from Micron, right? As well as why they actually had such a good earnings, right? So one of the main aspects here, right, is actually due to its DRAM, right, otherwise known as dynamic random access memory, right, as well as this NAND, short for NOR-N flash memory segments, right? So all these, right, these two actually help to produce the majority of the business for Micron, right, and this helped to increase its revenue, right? Yep. So there is also all these other catalysts coming up, right? The transition to 5G, right? As many countries are moving to 5G, right? So Micron itself is also helping this transition, right, with its DRAM business, right? And there's also this EV market as well, right? And with EVs, right, we actually also have to depend on Micron, right? Yep. So that is also something to look forward to for Micron. And last but not least, we also have that data center market, right? That can be another catalyst for Micron, right? So there are many data centers, and there are more data centers that might be coming up in the near future, right? And as what I say here, data center has become the largest market for memory and storage, last year, and expected to grow at a faster pace, right, in the near future as well. Right. So this, looks like, very promising for Micron, right? All these catalysts, if it do get realized, right, it could send Micron stock price skyrocketing, right? So that's something for you to consider, right? Whether this might actually take off in future. Right. So with that being said, right, we have seen some of the recent news, some of the catalysts, but what is the future direction, right? What is the future direction for Micron? And to do that, right, being the trade engineer, right, I will be looking at the technical side of things for Micron, right, so that you can offer some hints of what might happen in the near future for this particular stock. Yep, but before I do so, right, once again, don't forget to click that like or love button, right, if you are enjoying our sharing so far. And without further ado, right, let us now check out the price chart for more details. And with that, let me change my screens. All right. Yep, thanks for the love. Yep, and here we have the Micron daily chart, right? So I've drawn, few indicators over here, right? So let me go through in detail one by one, right? So first of all, right, let me draw attention to this downtrend line, right? This downtrend line is basically, you can see that price hasn't broken this downtrend line, right? It is still trading below this downtrend line. So that is something to take note of, right? In order for this stock to actually see further upside, it has to break this downtrend line so that, it can move to higher prices, right? If not, it might still be trading. This might still be the resistance for this stock, right? And the second resistance that we see down here, right, is actually, this horizontal resistance, right, at about $84.6, right? It used to be the support level previously, right? But now it is that resistance, right? So this is another level of resistance, right, on the horizontal side, on horizontal resistance that we might be looking out for, right, to see whether this can actually break in the near future. Right, so that's for the two resistance level for us to watch out for. And as for the support level, right, what is there for us to look out for, right? So let me draw attention here to your first, horizontal support, right? The first horizontal support here, right, is actually, at this level about $75, right? So it's actually, recently just tested it, right? If you can see, last trading day on Friday, right, you're actually a red candle and actually went below it, but actually, at the very end, it closed above the horizontal support, right? So that's still a good sign, right? It might seem to suggest that this horizontal support is still a strong support, right? But we got to see what happens next week, whether this would continue, right? Whether this support continues to hold. And we have another support over here, right? This is our uptrend line, right? It went slightly below, right, on this particular day, right, 15th of March, right? So it was a brief sell down, a brief fake breakdown in that sense, but instantly, rebounded on the 16th, right? So, so this uptrend line was generally holding, right? And you realize, right, on the last trading day on Friday, right, it actually touched this uptrend line as well. Right? So we have to also see whether this uptrend line continues to hold, right, in the near future. Right. So if this horizontal line, this horizontal support, and this uptrend line do not hold, right, we could be actually looking at the next support level, right, which is actually somewhere around here, right, somewhere around 68.7 US dollars. Right, so this used to be the support previously, right, and even very recently, right, on the 14th and 15th, right, we also saw that it hit this support level, right, before it rebounded up. So this could be the next support if this stock continues to go down. Right, so that's a brief nutshell, and we look at the MACD, right. The daily MACD is actually still positive, right? So that's actually a good sign, right? As long as it stays positive, it might suggest that the uptrend is here to stay, right? But if it crosses over in the negative region, then we do have to be wary of more bearish signs for this stock. Yep, but if we look at the shorter time scale, right? If we look at the hourly time scale, right? The MACD is actually negative, right? So that is something for us to take note of, right? So it's on the shorter time scale, right? There could be some bearishness, right? Although we can see that in recent times, right, it seems to be closing up the gap. Yep. So if the gap closes up and it eventually does a crossover in the positive region, then that could imply some short-term upside for this stock as well. Yep. So that's a brief summary of the technical indicators for Micron. And let me go back to my slides. Right. Yep. So that's a brief recap over here, right? Yep. So if you have been lost of what I'm mentioning, I will recap here again, right? So that first horizontal support, right? At $75, right? The question here is whether it can continue to trade above this line, right? And the second, support, right? The uptrend line over here, right? It is now testing this uptrend line. And the question here is whether it can continue to trade above this line in future. Right, and if this still breaks, right, we do have to watch out for this third support or the second horizontal support, right? And about $69, right? So this is the next layer of support, the next layer of horizontal support to watch out for. Right, and a downtrend line, right? So this could be the resistance point, right? It is still trading below this line. So whether it can break or whether would this be a resistance is the question to ask moving forward. Yep. And last but not least, or actually not last but not least, but the fifth point right here is that first horizontal resistance, right? So that is the other resistance level to watch out for, about $84.60 to $85. And we have the MACD, daily MACD to watch out for. On the daily time scale, it's still bullish, it's still positive. Whether it remains positive is something we have to watch out for. Yep, and hourly time scale, MACD is negative, right? We do have to see that crossover to be bullish on the short time scale. Right. So to consolidate, right, the bull and bear arguments, right? So the bull side of things, right, it is supported by the uptrend line, right? Just touching it, testing it, and we're also testing the first horizontal support level. And the daily MACD is still positive, right? But on the bear side of things, right, things can go downhill for this stock. It is still trading below the downtrend line. Hourly MACD is still negative, and as always, right, the overall market sentiment is still very volatile now. Right. So what should you do for trading, right? So this is my own opinion, right? Do your own due diligence, right? My strategy might not suit everyone. Yep. So do your own homework, right? So what I suggest here, right, is actually to adopt a wait and see approach first, right? Since the last trading day was a red candle, it was testing that support, right? So we are not sure whether that support will actually hold, right? So we do have to check to see whether that horizontal support, right, and the uptrend line, right, will be convincingly supported, right? If it does, right, it's good. It might mean a rebound. If not, it might actually break down and continue its way down. Right, so if it's the former, right, if it is convincingly supported, right, we can consider buying the stock, doing a long entry. Your first target price, right, at either the downtrend line or the first horizontal resistance, right. So these two could be the resistance point, the first resistance point to watch out for, right. But if it actually breaks down, right, we should wait for the next support before considering again. Right, and as always, right, do check out the macroeconomic outlook, right? How the bigger market is actually doing, right, as well as any individual news, right, of this particular stock. Right, so that concludes my sharing, right, for Micron. Right, so if you like my sharing today, right, don't forget to click that like or love button, and also share that video, right, so that you can actually, more people can actually benefit from our sharing. Yep, and as always, right, do follow us on our social media pages, right? So you've noticed, right, I actually have a new social media page here, right? I actually just created a TikTok channel, right, where I share, some of the summary, right, of some of the traits that I've mentioned either in this video or some of my other live sharing videos. Right, so you can check it out. You just want a quick summary, right, of what I'm going through, right? And for those of you who are here for the very first time, right, you can follow us on our other Facebook, other pages, right? We have our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, right? The handles are shown here. FINANCIALMissy has hers as well. Do follow her on the Facebook and Instagram as well, right? And also, right, do comment right below on what you think, right, of our sharing, as well as suggest, the next stock for our next sharing, right? So this stock today was actually recommended by someone who watched our video, right? And do feel free to come forward and suggest the next stock, right? And we shall feature it, in the next sharing. Right. So just a reminder again, we hold these sessions every Sunday at 4 p.m. Right. So next week will be on FINANCIALMissy's Facebook page. And last but not least, right, I have an upcoming Facebook Live as well this evening at 9:30 p.m. Right. So today I'll actually be talking, more on some of my trading strategies, right? Not just for cryptocurrency in terms of Ripple and Bitcoin, but also for gold, right? So I had recently traded some gold as well, and it was a good trade win for me. So I would like to share with all of you during that session how I actually spotted it and how I make that entry, right, to gain some good profits. So if you're interested, right, do join me, right, at 9:30 p.m. today, right, on the Binance SG Investor Facebook group. Right, and that's all for me today. I shall now hand the time over to Financial Missy.
Yo, guys. Yep. So thank you, the trade engineer, for sharing with us his insight to how we can actually trade Micron. So now, as you guys should know, right, I'm actually a investor here, and I like to look at lazy trade, something simple, something easy, something that I know will guarantee me income. So without further ado, let me share what do I have in store for you guys over there. So let me share my screen first. Okay, wait. I might be having some issue with my screen share. Okay, let me see whether I can share it. Oh, okay, guys. I think I might have some issue with my screen share. It's the same issue as a couple of weeks ago when my computer just got updated and stuff like that. And it seems like it's happening again. So just pardon me while I settle this issue. Mm, okay. Maybe the trade engineer, is it possible if I share with you my slides
Sure.
and then you help me screen it? Yeah, thank you so
Yep.
much.
No problem.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Technical error always happens. So as you
No
guys can,
problem.
as you guys know, right, it's not like always that we are like perfect and stuff like that. Things really happens because the thing about technology is you really do not know when and things will actually happen. So please pardon us for
Yep.
it. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Yep. But thanks for staying with us. Right. We shall be, I shall, once we fix this issue, yep, we shall continue sharing, right, on
Yeah.
Micron. Yep. In the meantime, right, you can try to think of, if you're here live with us, you can think of what stock you want like us to share, right, next week, right? Which burning US stock you would like us to actually go through, right? Yeah, do feel free to just, leave it in the comments, right? And we shall feature it, right, the next week, right? Yep. So we shall answer, your burning questions on a particular stock, on a particular US stock that you might have a question for. Yeah, and it looks like Financial Missy really has some issues. I think she has dropped off now, right? How about let's, since we have some time here while we wait for Financial Missy, right? If anyone had any questions, right, if you're live here with us, have any questions for us, you can leave it in the comments, right? And we can answer them for you, while Financial Missy tries to sort out
I'm
her.
back. I'm back.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Hi. Hi. Is it better now?
Hey, I shared with you already. Did you manage to receive it?
Let me check. Oh, yes. All
Oh,
right.
but it's okay. I managed to restart the whole Chrome and stuff like that. That I'm able to share right now.
Oh,
Cool.
okay. Great,
Yeah.
great. All right.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. Technical issues. We are humans after all. So please pardon my technical issues. But nevertheless, let me go straight into Micron to actually dissect this particular company to see whether it's a company of your interest and whether it's a good time to enter Micron now. Right. So very simply, Micron itself, the symbol for it is MU. On Friday itself, it closed at $76.18, of which there was a $1.71 decline on Friday itself. As you can see the chart over there, Micron's stock price was kind of volatile for the past 1 year. Later on, let me go into the price action to actually inform you guys what is actually happening in Micron. So before anything, let me just give you guys a disclaimer first. This session is never intended to be a financial advice, yeah, guys. So whatever being shared today is actually my personal view on the US equity market, and it's also my personal investment strategy. So I have my own strategy, the trade engineer has his own strategy, and I believe you guys should have your own trade or investment strategy as well, right? So it's never intended to be a financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before committing to any investments, right? As always, I always say this phrase is, I am always wrong, so you need to do your own due diligence, all right? Okay, so let's look into the microeconomy. I didn't edit much from this chart. In fact, I never actually edited anything because nothing much has changed. The things that are happening are still happening. But because today we are actually talking about Micron itself, so I want to actually emphasize on the issue of the supply chain deficit. Right, guys, I do not know whether you all have been following our sharing for the past few weeks, of which weekly on weekly I've been emphasizing on this issue, supply chain deficit. Okay, so this whole problem, right, actually originated very, very long ago, before COVID even started, and it got worsened with COVID when um there's actually a change in technology, demands and stuff. Those manufacturers, chip manufacturers, and everything has to churn out more products, or rather, technology for consumers, because there's an accelerated push over there. Supply, I mean the chips itself, the supply chain has already been burdened since then, and now with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, I'm sure you guys can expect how much more strain has it been added on to the semiconductor industry, right? No doubt moving forward, technology, we're going to have a huge demand of technology, and there will definitely be a huge push towards advanced technology. One thing that you guys needs to know is, yes, they can have demands, they can a lot of increasing demands, increasing innovations and stuff, but if it's affected by this thing called the supply chain deficit, this technology can't be pushed. All right, there'll be a store. Intermediary companies such as Micron are not able to produce the chips. If without the chips, they cannot produce the technology and stuff like that. So yes, you can expect in long term there is a demand, but the question is, are we able to fulfill this demand in the first place, right? So now with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, which is somewhat still under negotiation and stuff, we do not know whether it's going to go into a peace talk or whether it's going to escalate. I mean, when it comes to where it's a bit volatile and unexpected, but I want to emphasize to you guys is that Ukraine by itself actually exports, actually responsible to about 70% of the world neon, of which neon is a major component in the semiconductor industry. So the two big companies in Ukraine has already halt production of neon. The world supply chain is feeling the pain. On top of that, Russia itself is one of the biggest producer of this of this commodity called palladium. I can't really pronounce that word, yeah, but it's one of the biggest producer of that. And with the sanctions going on, it's not being exported or being shared and stuff. So palladium itself is one of the major component in technology in semiconductor as well. So if you look at it in the whole big picture, right? Without neon, with neon actually being affected, with palladium actually being affected, how actually are we going to expect semiconductor industry to be producing sufficiently such that it will send the income rocket high, such that it will help to boost further technology advancement. This is something that I really want you guys to, take it in and analyze yourselves to see whether a semiconductor industry is actually something that you really want to invest long term. Because long term wise, it'll definitely make money. But the question here is, how long is long? I have no idea. Right? So let me move on. The indicator so far, right? If you look at S&P 500 itself, um, yeah, it is as per what I predicted previously, that is actually going to move within range, and so far, it has gone back to retracement below the dotted lines already. And if the peace talk doesn't come true and stuff like that, you will see that it will really fluctuate, right, to the highest, the dotted line, the bottom, the support line, and we do not know how long will that take. The only thing the only thing that we know right now is the medium trend is still in the bearish mood, having the simple moving average 150, which is the blue line above the purple line, right? So for investors out there who wants to actually maximize their profit, who wants to actually not lose any money in the stock market, do look at the trend line and make sure that you move with momentum. All right, that's something very important that I hope that you guys can, take it in. All right, so that is the current market sentiment for now. And Micron itself, what does it do? It actually designs, manufactures, and sell memory and storage products worldwide. It works in four different segments: the compute networking business unit, the mobile business unit, the storage business unit, and the embedded business unit. So yes, Micron itself is a big company and does a lot of innovations, manufacturing, and with all these chips and products worldwide. Yes, no doubt, but it is still a semiconductor industry that it is susceptible to the disruption of the supply chain deficit, right? So please do your own due diligence before you decide to invest in a semiconductor industry at this particular point in time, or even moving ahead for the next year at least. Because currently, although um, companies might have their reserves of neon and pendulum to actually boost production, but the question is, how long can that last, right? So please be safe, do your own due diligence, and let me move on. Micron itself, when we look at the financial, we look at three different things: the income statement, the balance sheet, as well as the cash flow statement. So far, when you actually go through all these things, right, you will know that the financial statement of this Micron company itself has been pretty much fluctuating. There isn't much of a growth per se for this particular company. However, the net profit margin from last year to this year is about 28.95%. Yes, the debt ratio is good, current ratio is good. The PEG ratio is about 0.96, which means to say that this company is more or less quite within valuation. It's not overvalued, which is a good time if you guys are able to, if you guys are value investors, are able to close both eyes and invest long term. Yes, you can consider. However, the cash from operation, from investment, from financials are not very promising per se. I wouldn't say that this company is actually a very, very, very strong company, but rather this company has its good times and bad times, and really fluctuates lah. All right. In terms of free cash flow wise, it's not doing very well. It's actually decreasing, although the financial are not increasing much lah. That means this year it can be a very good year, next year can be quite a bad year. So the free cash flow will be, why is it decreasing? Might be actually being used, recycled into the business to help them tahan that period of time, right? So in terms of valuation, how is it? According to this projected free cash flow, Micron is slightly a bit overvalued, where the intrinsic value is 69.19. Is slightly overvalued, but Yeah. So thereabout, whether it's a good time to enter, we always do a technical analysis to help us guide our entry so that we don't go into any particular stock blindly. You need a strategy. Although I can't emphasize much that it's very hard to time the market, yes, because you do not know when would the whales comes in, when would the market manipulators actually manipulates the market. But one thing we know for sure is when are we going to enter and how are we going to time our strategy, right? So that's the only thing that we can control, and let's look at it. Okay, so this is a Micron 1 day, 1 year chart. And the lines that I draw, right, the purple and blue lines as the usual lines that I draw, simple moving average 50 over 150. So far, you all can see here is that the purple line is above the blue line, but the gap is narrowing. What does it say? Simply, it says that currently this micron might be switching into a bearish mood, medium trend bearish mood in the next few days if the stock price continues to go downwards, right? If otherwise, if you look at the solid black lines over there, I've actually dropped the support line as well as the resistance line, of which I felt that the stock price might likely move within this range. Can I be wrong? Yes, I can be wrong. So please, you guys, do your own due diligence and actually go in with a strategy that you are comfortable with, right? Um, yeah. And last but not least, why Micron is a company that I would not actually want to pay much attention with is because, as you can see, the blue line always crosses the purple line, and I don't have much time to actually keep monitoring the market and stuff like that. I want to actually, if I were to be investing in a stock, I want to be investing in a stock that has higher potential where the purple line is higher than the blue line. And of such, it helps me to build up my portfolio faster and more consistently. Right, guys? So that is all about my sharing on Micron itself. I hope that you guys learn something from this particular sharing from both myself as well as the trade engineer. Last but not least, yeah, please like this video, share it out so that more people can benefit, and do follow our social media pages. I think we have a lot of interesting sharing topics or posts in our respective social media pages, of which it is not the same. So please do like the trade engineers, and please do follow mine as well. Who knows, you can learn something from the different platforms that we have prepared for you guys as well. And yes, last but not least, I do have a upcoming webinar scheduled on the 15th of April at 8 p.m. That is my link over there. If otherwise, you can you can scan the QR code. I am actually doing this webinar because there are a lot of people asking me to review my full investment strategy, such that how can I actually be very comfortable and confident enough to actually suggest people to invest with a guaranteed income and having the confidence to actually invest and sleep properly at night. So it's something very exciting. Like, people has been asking me where do I have my confidence from, how do I ensure that and stuff like that. So if you guys are interested to actually learn about my risk management and also understand how do you analyze good businesses such that you know that the stock will always fly up high, and make use of good entry and exit rules to actually guide your investment strategy, this is a webinar that you guys do not want to miss, right, guys? And most importantly, is I do not know when I will be free to conduct another webinar as such, because of my my daily commitments and stuff. It might be a bit difficult for me to conduct a second one, but whether I will do a second one really depends on the response of this first one. So please, guys, if you guys wants to learn my full strategy, because I'm going to disclose it full-fledged without any censoring or anything, do actually sign up for my upcoming webinar. Of course, there will be bonuses at the end if you guys actually stay through the whole session, stay with me, and I'm pretty sure that it'll be a very exciting session where you guys can actually learn my full strategy. All right. And last but not least, although I say a lot of last but not least, but yeah, I do want to emphasize that um this particular session I've already started sharing my inner circle already. So there are only limited slots available. All right. So first come first serve basis. Um, yep. Let's meet together. So yep, that's all I have to share with you guys. And thank you for tuning in with us. And I hope this session has been beneficial to you guys as well.
All right. Thanks, Financial Missy. Right. So, guys, if you have, you are free on that day, right? Do join Financial Missy, right? It should be, sharing that once in a lifetime opportunity, once in a lifetime, unveiling, right, of a strategy, right? So you don't want to miss that, right? Yep. Yes. And with that, right, let's see if we have any comments. At the moment we don't have any, but if you have any questions that you have for us, right, do leave it in the comments below, right, and don't forget to suggest the next stop for us, for our next week's sharing, right. Yep. So with that, right, I think will be the end of our session. Yep. Financial Missy, do you have any last words to add?
Yeah, so for all of you guys who are actually, tuning into this session and watching the recording after we end this, please do actually, like and share this video so that more people can benefit from it. And as well, comment in the chat below what are the stocks that you would like us to actually analyze for next week. Because ultimately, what we are doing this is not for ourselves and it's for you. Right? So guys, do comment below so that we know what do you need us to analyze next week. That's all.
Yep. Yep. Great. Yes. So yep, don't forget, guys, don't forget to leave your comments below. Yep. And we'll see you again, right, next week, next Sunday, right, at the same time, 4 p.m. Right. And we're on Financial Missy's Facebook page at that time. Right. So see you guys then and have a great Sunday, remaining Sunday ahead. Right. See you guys.
Right, take care. Bye.
Bye.